I'm now starting to wonder, like, if it's Chiefs Bengals, and maybe more specifically, if it's Mahomes Burrow, it's just flat out going to be a close game, because we both predicted that the Chiefs were going to win by like 3 touchdowns. I think I had 31-13 and you had 41-10, and it was 26-25. And frankly, again, we all asked that question. How the hell did the Chiefs win that game?
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show's called Amateur Hour. I am Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, a formerly fickle fella turned full-fledged foodie, his Dirkness.
So, what'd you call me?
I said a formerly fickle fella turned full-fledged foodie. I went with a lot of alliteration there.
All right. It's like boy, man, Europe.
Didn't you used to be a really picky eater?
I did. I was.
Yeah.
No longer.
And now you love food.
Yeah.
Food's delicious. Dirk, look, I think that for many Chiefs fans, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
For we too.
You might even say our pets' heads are falling off. Let's in terms of just trying to organize this thing, let's try to maybe go a little chronological here. How the hell did the Chiefs win that football game?
Yeah, right. It did have all the makings of a Chiefs-Bengals regular season game. I'll say that. But yeah, that is the general consensus coming out of that. Fewer plays, fewer yards per play, more turnovers, fewer time of possession. You could argue that we had bad Andy, bad Pat, bad Kelsey, bad Spags-ish, maybe. We'll get into that later. Our left tackle got benched. We couldn't really tackle. And yeah, we won the game. There is the fun stat from Taylor Witt. Teams are 1-249 since 1991 when they have fewer than 330 total yards, more than 21 points allowed, more than 3 turnovers, and a lower than 18% third down percentage. And the Chiefs are that one win since 1991. So just some weird qualifiers to make that like no team has really done this ever before. And I mean, the easiest answer, the only thing I got is the fumble-six. And once you have a play of that magnitude, it can swing the game. But I think the weirder thing for Chiefs fans is that play we couldn't even celebrate, or at least I didn't even get to celebrate. I couldn't even really enjoy it because I didn't think it was a fumble. So I'm just sitting there kind of watching it like, yeah, scoop it up and go score, but I don't think this is a fumble, and we're just kind of doing this charade, to keep the opportunity open to change it later. And then we hardly even get a replay of it, and all of a sudden we're kicking the extra point, and it counts, and it's touchdown. So even like the big play of the game that should have been like this jolt of excitement was just kind of like, I'm just watching it, sitting back like, we tackled Burrow and he's down, and it looked like a fumble maybe, but it's probably not. And here we go, and it was a touchdown, clearly a touchdown. So I think that kind of added to it, because we didn't even get the excitement of like the huge game-turning play, because that it just, you couldn't see, and then the immediate replays took forever to get, and then you couldn't even tell in the immediate replays.
I gotta be honest, man. Like, the game kind of got away from me. Like, everything unraveled for me.
It's so Chiefs Bengals, though. It's so Chiefs Bengals.
Yes, everything unraveled for me in that moment. That 3rd and 10, maybe fumble, that turned into a return touchdown, followed by a failed 2-point conversion attempt with no pause for review in there.
Yeah.
And like, I now, 48 hours later, like, I know what happened. I saw it. I watched the game. But I don't know how much of it I've actually absorbed at this point. Like you said that we got bad Andy. Maybe we got bad Spags. I mean, I don't know. Like, I want to say defensively, I think I was happy with what we got, despite what it looked like the week before for the Bengals. This was the 23rd straight opponent to be held under 28 points. That's the longest streak since 2009. And I think that like the defense was just put into awful situations over and over and over and over again, and yet they found a way to win the day. Kind of a tough afternoon for every back seven defender not named McDuffie, honestly. And yet I think maybe I walk away from this game wondering, are we still a defensive team? Maybe that is the future that I want to get to before this show is over. But
I don't think you can say we're an offensive team after that one. I don't know if you want to say a defense team. Maybe a special teams team, maybe a Butker driven team. We are a Butker team, a dominant kicker team.
I think like some of the Mahomes stats are really something. Do you have like a put them all in context? Did you do a Mahomes deep dive or something that I'm going to step on if we?
No, I think the stat floating around that everybody knows, it's his lowest passing total in a game that he has finished. The only game lower, obviously, the Broncos game that he did not finish. His passing chart is very gross to look at. It's mostly behind the line of scrimmage completions.
Yeah. And yet he had his first first 40+ yard touchdown pass in the last 3 years, I believe. Hadn't had one in either of the last 2 seasons, and now threw one to, of all people, Rashee Rice, who caught the longest pass of his career, certainly on air yards, and I believe only the second catch with 20 or more air yards of Rashee Rice's career. We don't throw the ball downfield to Rashee Rice. We throw the ball short to Rashee Rice, and then we let him get all the yards after the catch stuff. The Mahomes stuff, we can look at the fact that he turned the ball over twice, and they were both really bad. I think that we can look at another one negated by penalty. We can look at the fact that his yardage was so far down. But honestly, like, they speak to some of these league-wide trends. How about NFL teams averaging 107 passing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks from 2019 to 2022? Over a 4-year stretch, they were averaging 107 passing touchdowns over the first 2 games. And I don't know what it ended up with last night. I believe that there were 3 passing touchdowns last night, which gives us a whopping total of 69 through the first 2 weeks of 2024. It's not quite cutting it in half, but nice, sure. We also in addition to this like record low number of passing touchdowns, certainly in the last 10 years, like it is a staggeringly low number of passing touchdowns through 2 weeks. We've got like a record number of field goal makes. And all of this in the context of the fact that we think that this is like one of the most offensive-centric rule books that we've ever seen, that offenses have just been dominating the league, but scoring is down over the past 2 years. And really throwing the ball is getting harder and harder over the last 2 seasons. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to think about. And I'm now starting to wonder, like, if it's Chiefs Bengals, and maybe more specifically, if it's Mahomes Burrow, it's just flat out going to be a close game, because we both predicted that the Chiefs were going to win by like 3 touchdowns. I think I had 31-13 and you had 41-10, and it was 26-25. And frankly, again, we all asked that question: how the hell did the Chiefs win that game? They went from like no business losing to no business winning. By halftime, practically. It was a baffling football game, man. And I think it might just be Chiefs Bengals.
Yeah, certainly the Bengals play is tough, and most people point to Burrow when I feel like most people should be pointing the finger at Lou Anarumo. He's the one that seems to have the Chiefs number more than anything. Burrow plays his part. And, part of my prediction was like, oh man, Burrow doesn't look right. He's not trusting his wrist. And that was kind of put to bed, I would say, because Burrow looked good for the most part. He had the fumble, but outside of that, he was playing pretty good, especially down one of his main guys, just feeding tight ends and wide receivers over and over. It was death by 1,000 cuts there. But yeah, it was Lou Anarumo that seems to just give Mahomes all these fits. I don't totally know why. It's even his interception early in the game, nothing crazy going on there. I don't know if you can really credit Lou Anarumo, and think of Mahomes' interceptions of the past. It feels like they always have an easy explanation to them. He's just a little off target there, or the receiver didn't come back to get the pass, or maybe he got fooled a little bit by the coverage, this complicated scheme. I could see that. Or a guy made a great play like Cam Taylor-Britt. But his first interception, there was nothing fancy there. They dropped back into cover 2. He stared it down and then fired it in there right to him. And it was just like, wow, that was odd. Don't usually see Mahomes make those types of mistakes. So yeah, it's I think Lou Anarumo is the one that gets the majority of the credit. And you even talked about Burrow versus Mahomes. It was even close last year when they played after Burrow was already out. Even that game was pretty close. The Chiefs kind of just leaned on the run game last year, much like they did this year. And I think it's a lot of this, man, it's the too high fever. We talked about this, led off the show last week with this, just the too high fever spreading across the NFL. And it almost feels like this was a response to largely the Chiefs offense in the late 2000s when he was first coming around, 2018, 2019. And all of a sudden we see the rise of this. And it almost feels like I'm kind of keeping a running list here of things that the Chiefs have broken. And so far, the things that the Chiefs have broken this year, it looks like the Miami Dolphins. I think you could argue we broke them. Think of them through the first half of the season last year. Then we play them in Germany, really shut them down. Play them again in the playoffs, really shut them down again. And I don't think we'll see, that version of the Miami Dolphins squad again. Even before the Tua injury, they did not look the same at all. The Chiefs may have broken Justin Tucker, who is now the worst kicker in the NFL from over 50 yards. That's a great sight to see. So there's this broken list, and I think third on that list might be all NFL offenses. I think Patrick Mahomes came along. Defenses had to start hitting the study room extra hours, figure out a new scheme, and they did. And now it's broken all NFL offenses across the league, unless your name is Derek Carr or Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray. So unless you were a mediocre quarterback for the last 5 years, mediocre or bad, then you're now great, and everyone else is now a mediocre quarterback.
I think I'm looking at this offense, and some of what happened is really surprising to me, even going against Big Lou, primarily because if we just look at it numerically, in terms of the yardage production, it's almost exactly 50-50 in the box score. They had 149 yards rushing and 151 yards passing, which it's just a weird look to see that. I really didn't think that they dropped back to pass that many times, I guess. It didn't feel like Mahomes was just constantly passing. He's only credited with 25 attempts. I know he was sacked twice.
Four carries too, so.
Yeah, so we're talking about, 32 dropbacks. But God, they certainly weren't successful throwing the football. And I don't know. I still, you mentioned, the left tackle getting benched, and I think, I've probably been really banging that drum over the last couple days, going after it pretty hard. We'll talk about that after the break. I do just want to kind of plant the seed, though, that when you go 1 of 8 on third down, when you have this what looks like a balanced offense, but neither your run or your pass are able to convert on third down, it's probably just going to end up being an ugly day, right? All of the ways that we're frustrated with the offense, it might be as simple as convert some third downs, right? It might be as simple as don't turn the ball over. They end up being -2 on the day, but, turn it over 3 times, and could have had a fourth in there. And so, some of the stuff, like we can sit back and dissect it, but it might still be simple stuff. And it's the beginning of the year, man. And you're talking about like this for a lot of guys, even though they got to play a huge nationally televised under the lights, almost like a playoff style game, I guess, to open the year against Baltimore. If they haven't played in a game like Chiefs Bengals, like that type of rivalry, the stage can be pretty big for some of these guys. And ultimately that may have affected, certainly our left tackle. Let's take a break real quick. We'll dive into Kingsley a little bit here. See what Andy's got cooking for us.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone in any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts with you. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/AHPKC. That's mintmobile.com/AHPKC. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/AHPKC. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Listeners, I've been trying to tell you, and I'm starting to lose my patience because I want you to win some money. You have a chance. As a listener of Kansas City Sports Network, as a listener of Amateur Hour, you've got a chance to win $500, and all you got to do is answer a few simple questions about your listening habits. So listen closely. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey. Answer a few questions, and suddenly, boom, you're entered into a contest that you could win a free $500 gift card. bluewirepods.com/survey. There's also a link in the show notes on this episode. I also need to let you guys know, gonna remind you, we are still partnered with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Very excited to be working with them once again. Some of the great stuff they're doing in the community. And if you are looking to make it a big impact in Kansas City, all you got to do is step up and sponsor a sports team or a league that is run by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. If you do that, you get to help local kids while also promoting your business throughout the metro. Win-win, all right? Just shoot an email over to giving@helpkckids.org for more information.
And if you're looking for another way to help, if you find yourself coaching from the couch during the games, you should consider coaching from the sidelines as a volunteer with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Learn more on how to get into coaching at helpkckids.org.
So, Dirk, I mentioned before the break that I had kind of been harping.
You were losing it.
Well, look.
Just talk us through it. Talk us through why were you so upset about the benching of him? And what should they have done, or what was your thought pattern there? Because I was like, I thought he was struggling, and I was like, oh wow, he got benched. Okay, that's interesting. But you were adamant about not benching him.
I guess to me, some of this may have to do with just health during the preseason, but like it never felt like it was much of a contest as to who was going to be your starting left tackle.
And Wanya, remind me, Wanya was like out all of preseason?
I think he missed a lot of it. Yeah, he ended up getting hurt.
I know he was out, but I didn't know I feel like
I don't
it was
know if
on
he
the whole
had-
time. There was never a single mentioning of him like being the starting left tackle.
I think he got hurt like in the first preseason game. And it may have been the second one. I just remember it's like you don't want to see injuries, and then, oh, we've got some injuries. Because Wanya got hurt, and Hollywood, I want to say, was that first preseason game. And, you know, at that point, it was like they'd been splitting reps, and we don't really know who's who here. We can maybe start to make some projections that, like, the Chiefs want Kingsley. He's a little more natural left tackle. But, you know, Wanya got 3 starts last year when Donovan Smith was hurt. And even if they went back to the veteran, it still maybe gives him a leg up. But still, at least it seemed like all the word coming out of camp was like, this is Kingsley's job. And so to me, when you're talking about a 21-year-old kid in his first year as a starter, in his second game as a starter, going against, I think, inarguably one of the 10 best pass rushers in the NFL over the last, 5 years. Like, Henderson had 17 and a half sacks last year. And I think he's averaged, close to 15 in Cincinnati. And it's not like he was, bad with the Saints before that. That's how he ended up getting a big contract to begin with, is because he performed well as a rookie, or on his rookie deal. Like, this is a very legit left tackle. And it seemed like what Andy decided to do was, we're going to put this guy on an island. This is how we run our offense. And we're going to see if he can hang. And plan B is pull him. Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a trained eye to be able to see every single thing that they may have tried. But what it felt like to me was the only adjustment they had in their bag was pulling him, not offering help. Now, I'm sure that people will tell you that he was offered, they tried to chip, or they tried to do this, that, or the other. But
I think the consensus was that they were not giving him much help. I mean, I think I saw some offensive line guys pretty much say that. I don't think there was too much wiggle room on that. I think that was pretty much agreed upon, that they were not giving him too much help.
Right. And that, to me, like, that in and of itself feels like a problem. That you came into this game knowing how good this guy is, knowing the kind of problems that he's given much more experienced players than Kingsley when you play against this team, and you don't have any plan to help him. It's just sink or swim. And if through the whole first half you see him sinking, there's still not an adjustment that we can make. Like, that felt like that is bad, Andy, to me. And doubly so, because we've got 2 of them. But here's where the real problem ended up existing for me. It's all of the commentary from Andy in the immediate postgame and on Monday. I don't like a single thing that he has had to say about this situation since then. But here's what I have to realize. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and Steve's like, look, dude, Andy is an offensive lineman. Like, if there's anybody that Andy's going to coach the right way, it's offensive line. And so whether he knows Kingsley well enough to be like, I got to be a red ass with this guy, I have to make him, make a public spectacle of this or whatever in order to get under his skin. That's how to motivate him or whatnot. Like, Andy's not making a mistake here. But that's what it feels like, man. Like Andy's approach to this, pulling him in the middle of the game, and then in the postgame, not just being like, he was having a rough go out there, and we wanted him to be able to, like, catch his breath and look at what was happening and give Wanya a chance to just close the game out for us. And of course he's going to be back on the field when we see Atlanta next Sunday. That's not what Andy said. He's like, I'm not going to commit to anything. I don't really know. We'll see what happens. And I'm like, dude, you are crushing this guy's confidence, and this is so out of character for you, Andy. You cap for anyone and everyone on this team, so why not a guy in his second game? Like, Kingsley was getting beat by one of the most savvy and productive veteran pass rushers in the league, and it looked like the only adjustment was to bench him. And to not come to his aid on the field or off of it feels very out of character. And that's why I'm just like, I don't know why you're handling it this way.
Well, I mean, there is the chance that he's just not ready yet, right? And he's just being honest with his answer. Like, we don't know where we're at. I mean, we've supplanted Kingsley in here as the starter, but Wanya Morris, in theory should have been a competition for the left tackle spot, and maybe they wanted Kingsley there And so maybe it's just kind of playing out, and now they're, having doubts. Like, I don't think Kingsley should just be, automatically placed in here into the starting lineup just because they, chose that early on in training camp or preseason. Like, if he's not ready and Wanya Morris is the better man for the job, then that's what it is. But I agree.
Like, was he? He came in and got the hands to the face penalty. Like Wanya did not do any better. He didn't give me for a sack. It reached a point where Kingsley was, a huge problem. And it was like, maybe it's tough to change the game plan at that point, like that late in the game. Like, okay, now we're going to start, giving chip, especially when we're not finding receivers open already. So if you're taking one less guy out of all these routes, and now like they're dropping back everybody, they're playing too high and they're playing everybody back. And now you're putting one less person in the route. And it's just like, okay, you might have a little more time, but like people are not getting open, it seems like. I kind of question the strategy along with you, especially because of the famous Nick Bosa game where we kind of had him in a blender doing all the different things to him. That seemed almost kind of like game plan specific for him. They could have gone that route. I wonder if it's different because, they talked about the 49ers in that game bringing the safety down and kind of challenging the Chiefs to go deep. And then maybe that kind of changed things up and it allowed them to do that versus what the too high mess that they're playing against now. So maybe that made things easier, but I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to throw him into the fire and see what they had. Like, let's see where this dude is at. And it's better to know that now than in January. Like, maybe they're just trying to season this guy to get ready for January, is the best idea that I got when it comes to that. But if he ain't ready, then he ain't ready. Like, if he's out there, like, and we can't run an offense because of him, I'm fine making the move at that point. Like, we have someone who's competent, who started games, and Wanya had 2 pretty good games last year, and then a disastrous game is what I remember. So it's not like he's like incompetent. He's able to come in and do the job. And if that's the direction we got to go, then that's where we got to go. It'd be interesting to see who gets the starting nod this week. But it does. I was kind of pulling up some like Ravens highlights even, and they were talking about, oh wow, they're not even giving him much help today. Like as a day one rookie starting left tackle. And he wasn't the greatest versus the Ravens either, going up against lesser defensive ends. So he hasn't been off to a hot start. I'm fine with the benching, but yeah, I'm kind of with you on the game planning. It was kind of questionable going into the game and not having anything. Because going into the game, we previewed the game last week, and the number one thing that can disrupt this game is Trey Hendrickson going up against a rookie left tackle. And that's kind of what we saw, amongst other things, I guess you could say. But yeah, they kind of just left him out there baptized by fire, I guess. And I look at it and just think, all right, so now people are going to talk about it all week long. You're opening the door to get into the rookie's head. It gives defenses a clear and obvious situation to attack, regardless of what you choose to do going forward. Andy made a spectacle of something by pulling a player and then not saying anything like positive at all in the pressers. To me, it's like all I can think about. And so maybe that's just that's an ish me, not an issue, But like I'm just
what?
not like
what was that?
Oh yeah, I'm around teenagers all the day. That's an ish me, not an issue.
You didn't say that.
But I don't
changed a lot since my day.
It's totally possible that I'm obsessing over something that doesn't matter. One thing that I think is interesting is that like coming out of college, I'm pretty sure that if you look at these two prospects side by side, people would probably say Kingsley is the better pass blocker and Wanya is the better run blocker. And I think that like so far what we've seen is that is still kind of true. I think they said that Wanya was like quite good as a run blocker in those games last year, and where he was getting beat was, playing left tackle, like truly playing left tackle, trying to protect the blind side. And so we bring in this guy who is not a great pass protector to be the recovery for someone who was just struggling against a great pass rusher. I don't like it. I just don't like the look of it. It doesn't pass the smell test for me. It feels like a move that like they just didn't know what to do. And so they were grasping at straws and decided to do this instead of, I don't know, put a tight end over there and fucking knock the guy for a second to just give him an extra beat. I just don't understand it. It looks dumb.
That's fair. I think you're using kid's gloves a little too much worried about his confidence. Like, if he's just going to get his confidence shaken because of this one bad game and getting old in it, like, then he's going to have, that's not the stud left tackle that you're looking for necessarily. Like, he's got to have more confidence in himself than that. And I don't think he made a spectacle. I mean, he was ruining the game, so they had to make a move and take him out, and then he gave an honest answer afterwards. And I don't know if it was throwing him under the bus and more so just maybe being honest. But sticking with the offense, just one more point that I had here, really. I'm a little worried about the receiving room post Marquise Brown injury. I'm worried about who can win in the intermediate, and I was looking at that Mahomes pass chart where, like, 75% of the passes are, like, at the line of scrimmage or behind, and we've had some of the deep shots. We get the one to Rashee Rice, which is nice to see, very good to see. We have the one last week that Worthy, which I think is being overrated a bit because it's just a blown coverage. It's not really a play or anything else. So you obviously have Worthy who can stretch downfield, and you have Rice who can do the things that he's been doing, which is mostly, underneath and getting run after the catch. But I'm not sure who can win in the intermediate, especially when you look at, like, Travis Kelce and his production thus far in the season. He's at 4 catches for the entire season. He did have the nice one that ended up getting called back for one of the many penalties on the offensive line. So it's not like he can't do it, but it's not crazy to see a dip in production from Travis Kelce. Like, that's to be expected at his age. He's going to slow down a little bit every single year that we see him. And so he's going to become less and less reliable as that intermediate option for us. And I'm just not sure who can win in, like, the intermediate area. I think we were counting on Marquise Brown to be that guy who can run some 10-yard and 15-yard routes. And I'm not sure if we have that right now with whoever we're trotting out there. That was kind of my big picture concern coming out of the game from the offense.
I'll agree that, Hollywood was, I think, brought in to be that guy, an intermediate, it being like an area of the field where he can win consistently. And so that gives you, in terms of those layers, like, you've got Rice at the line of scrimmage, Kelce beyond that, and then Marquise Brown, and then you still have Xavier Worthy. And so you've got these guys that win at these different layers of the field, which I think made it look really enticing on paper. And so you pull Hollywood out of that, and you're like, okay, well, now we've got this one area of the field where we may not have anybody that's successful. But I don't know. I look at last year, and it's like we had a lot of areas of the field where nobody was successful, and they still were able to figure it out. And so, like, I can, and I think it's right for anybody to now look at, particularly because of the injury to Hollywood, and ultimately now we're looking at going to spend a gap of time. We don't know how much time exactly, but without the starting running back too. I mean, we look at this offense and think about the injuries and say, okay, well, they have gone, after these 2 games now, they've gone from me telling you this might be a historic offense to, like, okay, wait, who's going to start where on Sunday against the Falcons? Like, we have some really big questions right now. And to me, I still feel, though, that Patrick, or just though, if you want to talk about the roster, like, it's better than it was last year, even now. And it's tough because of Pacheco, but, like, Rice is better than he was last year, and he was the best receiver on the team last year. Worthy is better than anyone not named Rashee Rice from the team last year. And I think the tight end room is better than it was last year. I also think that, like, running back wise, I would take Carson Steele over Clyde. I would take Samaje Perine over Jerick McKinnon at this stage in their careers. This stage in their careers.
You're saying Jerick sitting on the couch versus
Jerick last year versus Samaje Perine this year? Yeah, I would. I think he is a better and more useful player.
And I just didn't see Perine at all out there, at all.
I apparently somewhere in there, I feel like I heard that he had 3 carries. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I said, wait, what? I don't remember seeing him until, like, that really weird and awfully timed screen pass in the fourth quarter.
Zero carries. I don't think he came in the game until Pacheco got hurt. And then I was like, holy shit, who are they going to go to here? Because Perine hasn't played. And I don't know if maybe they don't trust him with the playbook yet or something like that. Protection rules and calls. And it was kind of a big spot right at the end of the game. And it was kind of like they're needing to throw. So like, would you throw in the rookie steal here to try and, pick up blitzes and stuff? It was kind of a tough spot. I mean, it's close. It's a lot of the same parts and just talking about, who's a little bit better, a little bit worse. So it is similar, and they did figure it out last year. But it is the idea was that they're going to be better. The idea was that they're going to be better this year. Like you don't want them to have the offense they did last year. They figured it out in the playoffs. A lot of that was Travis Kelce being, having some flashbacks and being the old Travis Kelce. Does he still have that in the tank? I mean, we hope so. Otherwise, you're hoping, I want to see more from Worthy. We've seen, him catch a wide open throw and take an end around and flash his speed, obviously, which is great. But I would love to see, more production from him before I'm, counting him as like this reliable option that we got. Obviously, he's going to be taking the top off defenses and helping out that way. But we need to see it produced for it to actually, start affecting the offense and opening other things up.
One of the things that I said I was like interested in, I really wanted to kind of see how it played out in the game, was like how much running would we do because of the way that the Patriots had beat the Bengals. It was, the Ramondre Stevenson show. He got 25 carries in that game, and they ended up giving Pacheco, I think, 19, and then he had another 5 receptions or something. So we're talking about almost, 24, 25 touches here for the starting running back before he gets hurt. And now, look, I was listening to Guess the Lines, and they start questioning, Simmons and Sal are talking about the Chiefs, and they start questioning the Chiefs for giving the ball to Carson Steele in the final 2 minutes of each of the first 2 games. They're like, who is this guy? Why are you handing him the football? And instantly, as a Chiefs fan and like protective of my guys, I am like, how dare you? I'm the only one that can talk badly about my team or something. But I've got to admit, man, like I do have some questions about what we're doing offensively. That being said, are you ready to visit the rumor mill, Dirk? You ready to visit the rumor mill? I got a couple for you in there. Juicy, bud.
Give it a twirl.
So first up in the rumor mill, it is currently rumored that Disney execs are already in talks to greenlight the Carson Steele movie, depending on how this season goes. And on top of it, my sources are telling me that Lifetime is also developing a script for the Kareem Hunt movie, pending. Okay. So look, if we want to think about like the entertainment factor from these running backs, Pacheco going down opens the door to 2 pretty cool stories, because it seems like whether it's an undrafted rookie who also, just fumbled the ball, and seems like a hardworking coach's son, first guy in, last guy out,
sneaky
athletic, all those.
Romo saying sneaky before everything he was saying, like this is a sneaky big third down, like that was a sneaky touchdown. Like, no, it was just a touchdown, bro. You don't put sneaky in front of everything. You're doing sneaky too much. That's pretty much all he's got.
I don't know. I'm looking at the undrafted kid steps in his lowest moment, but to try to rescue a team headed for its 3rd championship when their star running back goes down and la. Or maybe both also, former guy, major fall from grace, absolutely seems to have hit rock bottom, at least like socially. I mean, God, man, you look back at that video of Kareem Hunt getting pulled over and he's like weeping and telling the officer like how he feels while the Chiefs are in the playoffs. And man, I mean, it's sad stuff.
Sad.
Him getting the opportunity to have a redemption story. Like I imagine that just the feeling of like, I don't know, release or something, of being able to just step into that facility again, I am actively getting a second chance at the place that I was supposed to be this whole time. Like, dude, that in and of itself has got to feel good. It's already in some ways like this is exciting, the potential here. Now, I'm not excited at not having Pacheco, but there could be some really cool stories that come out of this.
And really, it was kind of best case scenario. Once I heard fibula, I was like, oh shit, like he's done for the year, like done. So what it ended up being, did they say 4 or 6 weeks?
I saw 6 to 8,
okay.
But like, look, I don't know anatomy and physiology, but I do know
how the fibula is.
He broke his fucking leg. He broke his leg, guys. Broke his leg. All right. So it is. Just look coming back from a broken leg, and hey, I'm gonna go out there. Oh, fractured. I'm being told. Thank you, Nick.
Shut up, producer Nick. Come on, let us cook. Let us cook.
The difference between a fracture and a break,
Oh, he walked off set. Wow, our producer just left. Great. So Kareem, my thought immediately went to that holdover video too, which is funny because Kent tweeted it out. You brought it up, and I mean, when was that? Like 20? I guess that would have been the Super Bowl run, like 2019. But one thing you can be for sure, Kareem Hunt's going to run through a wall for this organization, getting a second chance. Like I think he misses the guys. I think the guys all liked him. I think they all stayed in touch with him. I think he probably had some miserable years in there, wishing he could have been here with this team, with this offense, doing as much winning as they were doing. Like he was right there. He had the chance to be a part of all of that and got it taken away. But this isn't the same Kareem Hunt as like 2018, as I'm sure most of you have seen. I was looking at his stats. He's only at 3.0 yards per carry last year. He did have the 9 touchdowns, so maybe he was just getting a lot of goal line work. Maybe that's why the yards per carry is so low. But looking at the numbers, he really hasn't been the same since 2021 when he missed like the last 10 games of the year with a calf injury. And his numbers have really dipped since then. Because before that, I mean, he looked awesome as the backup to Nick Chubb. And it was just like, well, Nick Chubb's in front of him and he's one of the 5 best running backs, so he can't really get in there. But every time he did, he looked fantastic. So it'll be wild to see him back in a Chiefs uniform, see what he's get. The last point here on the offense, and then we should get to the defense. Just the injury luck kind of turning for this team. This is something I was very back and forth on putting in the preseason questions because the Chiefs have had very positive injury luck the last 2 years, but that's not really something you want to talk about. I didn't want to jinx it, so I refrained from putting that in the questions. But one of the questions that I had sitting in the drafts the whole time, like, will they continue to have good injury luck? Because this is something that just, it'll turn it all willy-nilly, and now here we are with Hollywood Brown out for probably most of the regular season and Pacheco out for a good chunk of the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs react to that after having very good injury luck, which is necessary to win in the NFL. I mean, how many teams just, look at the Rams this year? It's almost like they just don't have a chance because of all the injuries they've had here early on. And that happens to probably, 5 to 7 teams every single year. They have so many injuries that they just can't do anything. Their season's wrecked by injuries. And the Chiefs have no secrets. I mean, there's the year we had, Eric Berry and Derek Johnson, I want to say, both go out for the year in, the first game. Was it the Red Wedding game? Or it might have been the Bills game. I'm not sure. But yeah, and your whole season could just be ruined by your top guys getting injured, and they haven't had that the last 2 years. Let's switch over to defense. But
just one last thing, I do think, and we don't have to analyze it too closely right now. I don't know if this is going to be a season-long trend. I thought all the like Chiefs trying to overpower Cincinnati was really interesting. Doing the is it the wing tee when they've got the 2 tight ends lined up next to Mahomes and the running back is behind them, and obviously you can see whether they're doing it in short yardage or the goal line package, or they're going to try to just use it throughout the year, whatever. There are 100 different options on these plays. And I think that's why Andy likes them. There's so much room for confusion and play. But I was like, what are we doing? We're not that powerful, even with these big guys. They even were, with Leo Chenal playing fullback practically. There's a bunch of interesting stuff in there. I don't know if it's long term. I don't know if it's here to stay. Andy's always going to tinker around and try to give teams stuff to think about and like see what works, I guess. But I thought some of that stuff was interesting, but not necessarily like in a good way. I don't know. I wasn't like, ooh, look at what Andy's doing. I was like, what? Are we sure this is what we want to do? I don't know.
Yeah, I think just a different look, different wrinkle is going to be showing throughout the year. Let's go talk defense. You said you were encouraged by it. I think there's encouraging and discouraging signs. I think I was pretty frustrated most of the day. But so long picture, look at the Chiefs defense here. They have given up 25 this week, and they were a toe away from giving up 26 or 28 last week. If likely just comes down with that touchdown. They only gave up more than 24 points once all of last year. So they're a toe away from giving up more than they did only once last year in both the games to start the year. Granted, they played two of the maybe top 6 to 8 offenses in the NFL. So, a little saving grace there. You're going to give up more points playing good offenses. But they are currently 29th in yards allowed. They were second last year. Points per drive, which is my favorite stat. They're 23rd this year. They were finished 3rd last year. But so I gave some concerning stats. Let me give a take from this game of what I think was happening. I think it was Spags shutdown mode. I don't think we were seeing the exotic blitzes that became the calling card of this defense for most of last year. I don't think we saw that for most of the day. And we know for a fact that they have held back stuff like this before. They said after the Super Bowl in 2022, or maybe after the Bengals game specifically, that they were not showing anything in that regular season game against the Bengals because they wanted to save it for the playoffs. And so I kind of think like we think there's a good chance we're going to see Cincinnati later on in the season in the playoffs. They're going to be a factor, and we just don't want to give them all these looks to study. And then what we can do this year, this early in the season, in a regular season game that ultimately won't decide the fate of this Chiefs team. We know this Chiefs team is going to be around in January. We think the Bengals will be. So if we see them, we want to hold all those cards until then. When did you see the exotic blitzes in this game? Well, you saw it on the Burrow fumble-six, and you saw it on the sack that ended up being the Bengals' final offensive play. So they kind of waited, because the whole game I was like, where are these? Where's the exotic blitzes? Where are they at? I'm not seeing them out here. We're just kind of sitting back, and Burrow's just kind of sitting back there with little pressure and finding open tight ends over the middle all day long. So it's kind of frustrating to watch. But I do think they were keeping it under wraps and saving it for when it mattered most, both in this game and both in the season, later on in January.
I don't disagree. I can see every reason for Spags to hold that stuff back now, especially if you're talking about a team like Cincinnati that the expectation based on the way that other teams have played against us is almost like Cincinnati's going to be the toughest out. Like that's the team that it seems like the Chiefs respect the most, I would say. Not that they show disrespect to anybody else, but just the way that they play them regular season and postseason. It's just such it's such an epic battle between those two teams that it would make sense to hide as much as you possibly can in a game like this. But I mean, it's nice to know that he's got stuff in his back pocket that on the most important play of the game, when you gotta get this one last stop, here comes Chamari Connor on a delayed blitz, not from the slot, but from the deep safety spot. And I mean, they really just got so lucky. I don't know what Spags was doing, on the left side of the field, 2 Burrows left, because he's looking over there. He doesn't see Connor creeping up to the line. And so I don't know if this is Spags saying whichever way Burrow's looking, the opposite safety needs to try to creep in so he's not seeing it. Or if I don't know. It's almost like he maybe gave him some eye candy on one side of the field so the Connor could sneak up. Or they might have just gotten lucky. I'm not sure.
I think he thought Chimichurri's kind of coming down, and they're doing, which they did a lot in this game, I would guess, is bracketing Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase is to his right. And so it looks like Chimichurri is coming down, and he's just going to play that bracket. So I think he just looks away from that. obviously, Chase didn't do much in this game. He had McDuffie locking him up. McDuffie played fantastic. We're probably not going to give him enough run here today, but McDuffie is looking out of this world good this year, which I think a lot of us expected. So he's kind of coming down. He's got a double team, so he knows the advantage is to the left. But he probably has 3 receivers over there and kind of come over there, and then doesn't pop open, and then guy right in his face. That is it. I kind of lost my train of thought. Where were we going here?
I mean, we were talking about like pulling out that blitz, in the very last moment. Like it's a gotta have it play. And Spags, I would rather lean like today than save this blitz or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, think of like the end of the games. Think of like the Dolphins game last year versus Germany. Think of the playoff run last year. Like it's the Spags exotic blitzes that put this defense on a different level than everybody else. Like that's kind of what made it special. Now, my other theory to this here, I want to talk about missing L'Jarius Sneed, because I think I see 3 issues that have kind of come up without having L'Jarius Sneed this year, which shouldn't come as a surprise. You're losing a fantastic player, so obviously you're going to feel the effects of losing him. You don't just lose him and immediately replace him all willy-nilly. But the defensive back tackling yesterday, which I kind of forgot that this was such a big deal against the Bengals. Remember like games of old, and we kind of like lost those games because like they would throw like a little screen to, it was P. Ryan and it was Jamar Chase, and they'd go out there and we just couldn't tackle. We just get physically manhandled, and they'd beat us, and that's kind of how they won the end of those games. And I thought the tackling was pretty bad this week. Chimichurri likes to come flying in, which works out sometimes, but man, it's like a missed tackle waiting to happen. All the other guys took their turns. Even my guy Tranquil missed a tackle in there. Bolton gets run over by Burrow. Other guys were missing tackles. I think Joshua Williams is out there missing tackle. So that's one thing. And that was one of L'Jarius' greatest strength, like his tackling, setting the tone for the defense, being physical like that. L'Jarius was always an elite tackler. So I feel like that might be missing right now. Spags not being as confident in dialing it up, kind of like how I talked about. And maybe that's playing a factor because he doesn't quite trust all of the corners, all of the defensive backs at this point to fully dial it up and put these guys on an island. And so maybe that's leading part of it. And then I was texting Craig because obviously there's a bit of an issue covering tight ends right now. So I was kind of trying to figure out like what they did last year, because I was like, who the hell is covering tight ends? There's been some Willie Gay talk. Like, are they missing Willie Gay? Or what's going on here? And he kind of said Justin Reed was the main guy when they would play man coverage last year and covering tight ends. And I was like, well, what's changed this year? And he said they're playing a lot more zone instead of man. And the reason they are doing that goes back to the same idea that they're not trusting their other corners, not named McDuffie, so they're keeping the safeties back for deep help. So this was something where they had the utmost trust in McDuffie and Sneed last year, so they're able to play more man, able to dial out more blitzes. And this year they're playing more soft zones and staying back, and the tight ends are just kind of picking them apart in the middle of the field. And so that's kind of leading to that effect. Like losing Sneed is actually opening up tight ends because they're having to help elsewhere all around. And so I think there's just some areas where they're missing L'Jarius Sneed right now, and I'm keeping my eye on that moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and review just big moments from the Bengals, Yoshavas, his first touchdown, I believe, is against Nazi. His second touchdown is against Joshua Williams. The big 40-some-odd yard completion to Jermaine Burton is on our boy Jalen Watson. I mean, like all of them giving up major plays in the passing game. The safeties, really, I think that on that deep completion to Jalen Watson, the safety help isn't getting there. And I'm not trying to be a dick to Brian Cook, but didn't get there, right? And I even heard Craig on the lab yesterday basically just come out and say, no one plays single high anymore because the athletes just aren't there. And it may not be specifically about athleticism. It's quarterback play, it's receiver play, it's all these different things. But no one is trying to do single high safety anymore because it's just so hard for one guy to do everything, right? Ed Reeds don't grow on trees. And so, trying to He was talking about like they kept walking Justin Reed down to the box. You're bringing that extra defender to try to, account for the run, or maybe cover a tight end or something along those lines. And so now that means that your corners, that means you're in a cover 3, right? If you're going to walk one safety down and play him in the box, then the other safety is going to have deep middle, and both of your corners are going to have deep on the outside. And that starts to open up those flats for all the tight end stuff that we start seeing. Throwing to the tight end underneath. And look, the Bengals were down with Gesicki. My boy Gesicki out here with almost 100 yards from scrimmage had himself a nice big day against the Chiefs. Look, I think that tight end, like covering tight ends, might end up just being like the thing that the Chiefs struggle with defensively this year. We can talk about the linebacker speed or lack thereof to be able to get to the edge to try to make those sideline to sideline plays, or just struggling in pass coverage in general at the linebacker spot. Spags tends to, while figuring things out, play zone. Like, I think it's let me see what I've got with these players. Let me see where our strengths and our weaknesses are. We're going to play a lot of static zone, right? And so I think that like it will get more complex as the year goes on, as these guys start to, build up more faith in each other. And Spags builds up more trust in them. Like, one of the things though that I really want to point out, a moment in the game that I hope for viewers at home, if you caught it, was this like calming moment. The defense really was struggling, at least based on like what I was walking into the game expecting. I'm like, why are the Bengals successful at all today?
Especially, T. Higgins out. They don't have Mixon from last year. They got this ragtag group of tight ends that never really worked in Cincinnati before. And Jamar Chase isn't the one who's hurting them. Like, Jamar Chase is their one tested weapon out there, and you're watching him not really accomplish anything, getting locked down, and yet they're still moving the football kind of at will.
Well, there's a moment, I want to say about, 10 minutes left in the game. It could have been in the third quarter. I told you, the game got away from me, okay? but there's a moment in the second half, and we're entering crunch time, and as they're like going to break, you see Spags in a huddle on the sideline with like basically all of his defensive personnel. And he's not yelling, he's not screaming, he's just talking to them very calmly. And they keep talking about Spags the teacher, all of the teaching moments that he uses. And I just see him on the sideline with the defense, and he's just talking to them so calmly and confidently and comfortably. And I genuinely believe that that's how he feels with this group. We did lose L'Jarius Sneed, and it is a big loss. But I don't think it's something that we have to worry about all year long, because I think Spags trusts most of the guys that he has out there before the season even started. He has played Jalen Watson. He's played, Brian Cook. He's got so many of these players that he's familiar with that even if we didn't see him all year last year, like I think that the defense has good things ahead. And I really do wonder, with these losses on offense, if I got to go back to thinking we're a defensive team again, man. Like I think every team in the NFL is a defensive team now. I think it's every podcast across the NFL having this conversation. Like, are we a kicker-driven team now? Is Dicker the kicker our best player? Yeah, well, and I mean, honestly, man, like
is Ty Fairbairn our best player?
I know that there are people that I don't know if we're going to get to bad Andy, but I mean, we had some plays out there that people were upset about, and I'm still like, dude, I'm going to take the points. Like, well, I'm even going to take the points more, especially now. But like against a team like the Bengals, I'm not surprised that Andy, fourth and goal from the one. I am not surprised at all. I don't think anybody else should be either.
It will kind of lean more that way now because of how the game is changing. Fourth and one at the 1 yard line, fourth and goal at the one, I'm always going for it. Just because, unless it's like the end of the game, end of half, just because of the benefit of if you don't get it, then now they're back at the 1 yard line. So I'm always going for that situation. So I hated that call personally. But other ones, I mean, everyone wants them to go for it at all times on fourth down nowadays.
Would you like if you're the NFL, we've changed the kickoff rule. If you're the NFL and you want teams to always go for it from fourth and goal at the 1, can we make a 19-yard field goal worth 2 points instead of 3? Like, can you simply...
No, because we should be penalizing the idiots that are doing it and not encourage them. We should be encouraging everyone that has the balls to already do it.
It's only an extra point. It's worth 1. If you want to kick this 19-yard field goal, you only get 1 point for it. Like, no points?
Penalize them.
Just not... You line up for a field goal and they say illegal formation, not allowed to kick this short of a field goal.
It could be like, did you know there's a rule in the Canadian League? I just learned this recently, where if you miss a field goal but it goes out of the back of the end zone, you get 1 point. So if you have a tie game and you're kicking like a 40-yard field goal and you miss, but it goes through the end zone, you get 1 point and you would win.
I love
that. Canadians just making up rules on the fly. I don't know what's going on up there during these games. They're like, I feel bad for him. Give him a point. Like someone just started doing it on the scoreboard. A scoreboard operator, like, just give him a point. Just give him a point. And then they're just like, yeah, it's the rule now.
The fact that you started a question with, did you know that there's this rule in Canadian football? Like, nope, I didn't. You could have said any rule, and I would have said, nope, I didn't know that Canadian football rule. I don't know any of the Canadian football rules.
They got the weirdest rules, man. Are you good on the defense? I had a little zag of the week here to close things out.
Yeah, I'm good on the D.
Bet you are. All right. I wanted to keep it zag of the week, where everyone's going one way, and I feel differently because this happens quite a bit. I think everybody in Chiefs Kingdom hates the Bengals. I think everybody considers them our top right. And I am here to say I hate the Baltimore Ravens more than the Cincinnati Bengals. Because at least I respect the Cincinnati Bengals. At least, they show up, they play hard, they talk shit, and I'm all for it. I don't get mad at this shit. Like, I love it. Bring it on. Bring it on, Cam Taylor Britt. Talk more. The Ravens, they say they're talking for after the game. And they just whine and whine and whine. And they're supposed to be like these hard-nosed, big bad bullies. Like, that's their brand of football. And I feel like we come in, we push them around, and then all they do is cry about it. And and the way Lamar is treated with kids' gloves, where we just have this conversation where we go back and forth, like, he needs to pass more. Like, nobody believed he could pass, but he's proving that he's a passer. And then they're like, well, they lost because they're not running the ball enough, and they trusted him as a passer. And it's just like this constant back and forth where they can't figure out that Lamar's not a good enough thrower to necessarily win a Super Bowl. And it annoys the shit out of me. And so I find myself like, I was cheering for the Raiders very hard over the Ravens. Partly because I predicted it here on this very podcast, and it came true. And partly just because I hate the Ravens. I can't stand them.
I guess if you're going to do a zag of the week, should I zig? Should I go with the flow and agree with everybody on something?
Go with the flow, buddy.
Okay. Someone who we have barely mentioned today, we did mention, but have barely mentioned. I'm just as excited as everyone else about Leo Chenal. It's amazing. It's so fantastic that they're using him on both sides of the ball. And like, truly, I think the right word, I've heard many people smarter than me use this word, that they're weaponizing him. And they are. I feel like they're looking at these ways that, like, man, we can have Leo Chenal do a little bit of this. We can have him do a little bit of that. We can have him play 3-tech defensive tackle. We can have him go and play inside or outside linebacker. He can be off the ball. He can rush the passer. He can play fullback. He can be the lead blocker on a 4th and 1 fullback trap. We can still have this guy come in here and do something on both sides of the ball. There's something about the, like, one of 12 brothers, played football at Wisconsin. And, by the way, it's some crazy number like that. Yes. Having to compete for everything, including like orange juice in the morning. I genuinely believe that there's something to all of that. And the fact that I think a lot of us forget that he was, according to Math Bomb, the most athletic linebacker in the history of the combine, dating back to 87 or whatever. The entire Math Bomb database, Leo Chenal was number 1 among linebackers. And I mean, if you ever need proof of it, just go back to that Super Bowl parade, folks, and jump onto the bus like that. The guy is an absolute animal. And it's really cool to see him coming into his own when we just didn't really know. Like, I mean, this was a 3rd round pick, and it kind of felt like this is an extra guy. We're going to bring him in. We'll see what he can do. He feels too good to be on the board right now, sort of pick. And it's really worked out. And I think that the Chiefs could use some of that magic with both of the guys they drafted in the 4th round this year that they thought too good to be here. So we're going to pick them and see what comes out of it. And all we've really seen through 2 games is Jared Wiley have that one weird catch. Still haven't seen much of Jaden Hicks, but I'm looking for it before the year is out. Maybe they're both going to have their best game in the Super Bowl, just like that.
Bold prediction. I mean, Chenal, definitely. It's Chenal, right? Because Romo kept calling him Chenal. It's Chenal?
I don't know. That is one, like, I care about how names are pronounced. I really do. I mean, like working as a teacher, it's like say your name so I can say it correctly. I don't, Leo, I'm sorry, man. I don't know. You haven't corrected anybody. I haven't heard it. I'm going with Chenal.
It's got to be Chenal. But we kind of talked about him playing like edge last year, which he did for a few snaps, and I was like kind of pushing for it. I mean, amongst others. So, let's see this more and more, especially with, our defensive ends being a little banged up right now. Felix, I don't remember seeing Felix on the field at all in this game. Give me some more Chenal out there. And you were kind of talking about the 11th man on this defense. Just create a role for Chenal. Like, who? Adalius Thomas. Do you remember him? And he was kind of just like this 300-pound guy, but it was kind of playing edge rusher. And it just like, at that time, it didn't really make sense. And it was kind of just like, create a spot for him. Like, just find a spot, put him out there, and just let it ride. And I think you're almost kind of at a spot where you want to do that with Chenal. Just like either line him along the line or drop him off a little bit. Put him up the line and then have him drop. He's just one of those guys, like another toy that Spags can play with to have some fun. I got to shout out Butker. We gave him a little bit of shout out. But I didn't see anybody complaining that we got to like 50-yard field goal range and then didn't really try to advance the ball any further. And I don't think anybody was really complaining, like, from Kansas City. I saw, like, some non-Kansas City people complaining, like, look, this is not a gimme. Like, you can't do this. And everyone in Kansas City is just like, no. We're at 50 yards. It's a clutch kick. Butker is guaranteed. And then he just goes in there and bangs it right down the middle. Like, the dude is automatic. He had the one-off year because he hurts his plant foot on that first game of the year. And other than that, his stats are just, like, tremendous. Like, he is an outstanding kicker, and he should not be taken for granted. When you can just sit at a 50-yard field goal and be like, nope, we don't need any. We have Patrick Mahomes, and yet Harrison Butker is more automatic than Patrick Mahomes.
I'll also say that the entertainment factor on Butker is extremely high. The Chiefs like tweeted out, him kicking the field goal or something, and all of the comments were from women saying, I missed it. I was getting my husband a beer, or I was cleaning the kitchen, or whatever. And I'm sorry, like, I think it's funny. I absolutely think it's funny. I'm going to laugh every time that women jump in on that. I heard, this is what I'm hearing. Haven't seen,
or you're a lot of sources. You got a lot of sources this year.
Heard that Butker kicked it, saw that it was true, and turned his back and walked away like a 3-point shooter that one's going in, and just walked off. That's amazing. Like, that kind of, and especially because, I mean, this is the 3-pointer if I've ever seen one. No 2-pointers, all right? We're not going to, no 19-yarders on this one. I mean, it was clean from 50. Is there a distance where, I mean, the Chiefs decided not to go for 60?
Oh, man, I wanted to see it. They needed like 10 fewer seconds on the game clock, and they totally would have kicked that. And he totally would have banged it. It would have been the longest field goal. The problem is, if he misses it, it's like an automatic field goal for the Bengals, because they're now at like they'd be already at the 38-yard line.
Yeah. I'll be honest, though. I think inside of 60 yards, 59 and below, I'm just like not even thinking about it. And honestly, probably like, I mean, there's going to be moments like, sure, you'll feel a little pucker, but like, I'm not going to be that nervous, which is really impressive stuff. And I mean, when you look back at those Pats runs, like, obviously Vinatieri is a huge part of what the Patriots were able to do. And it's a thing that you did. Yeah. And so now we're looking at a guy in Butker that is an integral part of what these runs have been. He may very well be looking at the Hall of Fame. I think he's almost as automatic for the Hall of Fame as he is lining up for a 50-yard field goal. Folks, this has been Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He's his Dirkness. The Chiefs are playing on Sunday Night Football against the, I don't know, what will we call the Falcons? The feisty Falcons?
Feisty Cousins. Feisty Cousins.
Yeah, we'll see. Sunday Night Football this week, folks. The Chiefs are 2-0. Hopefully we get a third. And man, who knows what's happening with this offense? I don't even know who's going to be playing running back on Sunday night. The Chiefs actually also only have 50 guys on the roster right now, if I understand correctly.
I should sign up.
Yeah. Hey, we're available. Again, I'm Ryan Scott. He's his Circus. This is Amateur Hour, and we'll talk to you next week. Go Chiefs.
Briefs.